Good evening. This is my paper about the model of the autopsy in psychosociological way of the cases of suicide. In particular, the structure of my work is about suicide, firstly, and then about the psychological autopsy, and then the sociological autopsy. And last but not least, a proposal for integrated approach in between the two, between psychological autopsy and sociological autopsy. Here we see sociological and psychological analysis of suicide and of his causes, and the cause, the reasons why people commit suicide. In particular, we analyzed in a historical way, in particular with the vision of Durkheim and Morselli, and in particular the theory of Durkheim of the social cohesion, about how much person is into his society, and he or she is integrated in this society. More he is integrated, and less is probable that he or she commits suicide. We can have a look also to the psychological autopsy. I put a quote of Bonicato, that is the main author I used to study this phenomenon and this psychological autopsy, in particular on his work of 2006. I used also the models that was already in use, for example, the model of Schneidman, divided in 16 parts, and then also the model of Young, that are of the 60s and of the 90s. And then I analyzed also the sociological autopsy. In particular, I used the Fincham works and the Bonicatos, Rojas Lopez, Garcia Perez works, and in particular the theory of MAPI, that is the first integrated model of autopsy in the social and human sciences. Then I tried to give as a glance a proposal for integrated psychological and sociological autopsy using the models already existing and integrating the social factors analyzed by Durkheim, Morselli, and from Barbagli and other studies. In particular, it is important to analyze the anagraphical factors. For example, men's does suicide more than women, and old people does suicide more than young people, and an analysis of schooling and occupation of the people. For example, people without occupation does more suicides, and it's more probable that they do suicide. And for the details, I suggest to read directly. And then about religion, that is surely also important, the familiar situation and social situation, and also economical situation, and about also criminological situation of his or her death. And here we can see also the presence of social stress or expectative of the society on these people. For example, in the case of the hikikomoris, the presence or not of illness or a mental illness or depression, the sexual orientation, although these data are not yet sure and given statistically. Then political orientation, the geographical area that is also important. For example, in the North Europe, they commit more suicides, and the presence or not of subcultures, and the social inclusion and restriction of the freedom, um, eventual presence of violence into the house or outside, for example, at work or at school, and others situation. In conclusion, I think that there should be more studies, empirical studies about social factors and psychological factors um, that make a person commit suicide. But from the data we have, we can surely affirm that the the reasons given into this paper are for sure confirmed, but it can be um, more reasons that are not included in this work. This is the bibliography that I used into my paper. So thank you very much for your attention and have a nice evening.